Testing, 1, 2, 3. I can hear myself, probably. A little bit of a change of pace, not just a stack of DVDs in the back and some fucking books. Let me just get a bit closer. Yeah, I'm gonna hold this bass guitar right here, just to feel cool. I do want to get one thing out of the way, like music-wise, I'm like currently just mastering a bunch of tracks to make them sound louder and clearer. Hopefully I get it all out by next week, and hopefully I can actually start like working on songs where I sing and write lyrics to, because obviously those are the ones that people actually listen to, and not just stupid instrumentals that I made after listening to a bunch of like random rap music and fucking Sophie and Charlie XCX. I also want to talk about something else later on in like the month, because something that has to do with my military service is going to come up. Around the 28th, I'll know for sure what's going to happen, but until then, I'm going to keep it on the down low or whatever. Do people still say that, the down low? Is that like just some 2000s era Disney Channel slang that I'll never get rid of? Probably. So here's the thing, when I stopped making movie reviews, I sort of wanted to never talk about movies on this channel anymore, mostly because I wanted to like go fully into making music and kind of make my identity into that. So I thought, okay, why not loosen up a bit? You can talk about movies. It's not like you're not allowed to talk about movies, even though you want to like change your identity when it comes to the perception that other people have of you. So I decided to do exactly that. I'm not going to do any movie reviews anymore, but I do feel like I should like allow myself to talk about movies if I want to. The main reason I wanted to do this is because of two things that I've watched and listened to recently. So it's going to be about movies and music. But the main thing I've been thinking about recently is how there are two things that make something good in art, or maybe just in life in general. You either do something well that's already been done, but you do it well enough to the point where people are able to notice it. So it's like if you're just like another singer-songwriter who's not necessarily doing anything new, you're just like, you just have a guitar and your lyrics, but you do it so well to the point where people actually hear about the stuff that you do. And then there are the people who do something new, and it's not necessarily the greatest thing ever, but it's new, it's out of the box, and they succeed in making something coherent and enjoyable. And that's enough, which is why when time goes by, after like 50 years, that thing that used to be like new and revolutionary and good might sound a bit dated, because it wasn't necessarily the most interesting thing compared to the other things that influenced it. Like talking about like Elvis Presley, for instance. When he came out, it was insanely new, but now when you look back on it, because he's influenced so many other people that are doing the things that he did but in a more interesting way, he's not that interesting anymore. But when you look at the things that are considered new at the time, and are considered to be revolutionary and really original, and are coherent and enjoyable at the same time, they are things that really sort of spark ideas into creative people's minds. When you see something really new and fascinating, you want to do something as good as that as well, and as interesting as that. And I've had that experience recently with this movie called Posession. I cannot remember the name of the director, I'm sorry, but I recently saw it for the first time. It's probably like one of the last few really famous horror movies that I haven't seen, and it is one of the best horror movies that I've ever seen. I have never seen anything like it before. Like, I mean, sure, you can say, oh, it reminds me of like Cronenberg. There are some of the camera angles remind me of Rosemary's Baby. Some of the effects reminds me of Hellraiser. Sure, I can like make comparisons, but I've never seen anything fully like that. And it's a movie that really kind of just doesn't care about rules in general when it comes to filmmaking and storytelling. It seems to do whatever it wants. It seems so freeing. And in a very freaky and disturbing and uncomfortable way. And while I was watching it, I sort of realized that for a while I kind of forgot that movies and art in general don't really have rules. there aren't any set rules to make a movie. As long as you make a coherent idea from start to finish, you can do whatever you want. And this was just one of the movies that reminded me of that. And I realized the greatest pieces of art in the last few years, or throughout art history, movie history, and music history, are pieces of art that sort of start to stray away from the sort of the stiff format of filmmaking and storytelling. The introduction, the conflict, the resolution. The second you slowly start to get away from that and somehow still make it coherent and make sense and make it all interesting and entertaining, it becomes a much more fascinating film. It becomes a much more creatively, inspiring movie. And I realized that while watching Possession, I realized that I haven't seen a lot of movies like that in recent years. Maybe like, when I think of like other examples, I think of like Orson Welles' F for Fake, how that really twists and bends your perception of how conversations work, how the truth works in filmmaking, how editing works. Films like Persona really innovates this idea of how identity works within filmmaking, and how to really present the idea of breaking the fourth wall. All these movies do these incredible things, and while watching Possession, I realized I should watch more of these kinds of movies. But I also started thinking about this recent album that you might have heard called Fetch the Bolt Cutters by Fiona Apple. I believe it debuted at number 4, which is lower than Idler Wheel, but that basically just means that they're both like as popular. Obviously we all know that it got a 10 on Pitchfork's website. People love it. And I love it too, but I think while watching Possession, I sort of like finally realized why I really like it. Well, I guess I kind of need to talk about Fiona Apple here. Fiona Apple, she started out as this alt pop star. When you listen to the title, it's not necessarily anything new. It's just really good piano alternative pop music. And it's really good, obviously, like Shadowboxer, Criminal, literally every single song, even though it's like 16 tracks long, maybe, you can cut a couple tracks or two, or is it 14 tracks long, or is it 12 tracks long? It's like an hour-long album, but it's like, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's all good. It's a really good album. It's a very classically driven album, but it's really good. And then you had When the Pawn, whatever the fuck. It's too long of a title, goddammit. It's cool for like 5 minutes, but then you're like, okay, I actually want to like name the fucking title. But when the Pawn is more like electronically driven, but it's still within the realm of the pop song structure. When you listen to a song like Paper Bag or Fast As You Can, you're like, okay, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. That's how those structures work. And then 6 years passed, and then she made Extraordinary Machine, and that's where she started to like slowly stray away from that structure of pop music and slowly make something that was more freeing, more out of the box, but still like comfortable enough for like the charts or whatever. It wasn't the biggest hit, and obviously people didn't like it because it was sort of like jarring for that time. But I think looking back on it, that's probably like the real turning point for her. But with that album, I do think it's probably her worst album, honestly. But it's her worst album in the sense that it's not fully realized. That sense of getting out of that pop song structure isn't fully realized. Yes, this is a test run. And then Idler Wheel came out. And basically that was the album where she took that sense of freedom and went full on with it. She finally realized how to make it all work and how to make it all sound really cohesive. The one problem that Idler Wheel has, and this is really the one flaw, is that it's not necessarily catchy. It's not catchy. It's not like melodically pleasing in a conventional way. Not that it needs to, but if I want to like come back to it again and again and again and again, that's what I want. As much as I can like sit here and talk about how much I love Throbbing Gristle and Frank Zappa and like Captain Beefheart, usually if you give me the option of playing Trout Mask Replica and like, I don't know, like Blondie's Parallel Lines, I'm gonna choose Blondie. So So, so we obviously all sort of still, as much as we like experimental stuff and as much as we like to listen to something really uncomfortable and say, oh yeah, that's really interesting, that's really new, oh yeah, oh, it sounds like it sounds like Death Grips, as much as we like to say all that shit. Fuck. Okay, that's gonna be a real bitch in editing. So, as much as we like to say all that shit, we do sort of like the comfortable sounding stuff. We like pop song structures, or at least pop song melodies and hookish, instrumental structures. And I think with Fetch the Bolt Cutters, she somehow managed to sort of find the perfect line between the experimental sound and the sort of the great classical song structures that she was using in Tidal. I feel like this album really is sort of the middle ground between Tidal and Idler Wheel, but it's also still her trying to really free herself from the pop song structure. The choruses don't really feel like choruses. Everything feels like one giant verse, but the verse is structured in a very beautiful way. And musically speaking, like the lyric, I guess lyrically it's not like the pop song structure, but musically it kind of does. But there are times where she like strays away from it enough to make it all sound like it's something completely new. And even though, it's been technically done before, I guess like Tom Waits' Bone Machine is like a clear, huge influence on the album, but when I hear it, I realize we haven't heard anything like this in a very long time. And it really kind of gives you an idea of how to use instruments in a very freeing way, especially when I hear like a song like Shamika. When I hear that piano work, at first it's very blunt, but somehow she kind of like adds a little flair to it to make it almost sound like joyful. When I hear all of that stuff, it's very interesting, and she really uses percussion in a very haunting and primal and very tribal way. Tribal is really the word they want to use, I guess. So when I heard that, I thought I sort of like related that to how I felt about the movie Possession, and how I'm realizing that I shouldn't structure myself into an idea that just to please people. As long as I can make it interesting. As long as I find it interesting, I guess, I should just be okay with it. I guess what I'm trying to say is try to make something universally appealing sound like something that's outside the box. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Make something original sound pleasant or interesting. I'm not sure where this is all going. Yeah, those are my thoughts on the album and the movie. If you haven't seen Possession, it was out in 1981. It has one of the best performances by any actress that I've ever seen, any actor that I've ever seen. Like, it's like one of the top 10 performances that I've ever seen. So, like, go watch Possession. I'm sure if you're a music nerd, you've already listened to Fetch the Bolt Cutters, but even if you're not a music nerd, if you've never listened to Fiona Apple before, go check out Tidal and just check out her entire discography. It's like 5 albums. You have time for 5 albums. And I'm sure you've already heard some of those songs anyways. It's not like she's underground. She's like right below being mainstream, obviously. Like, she can't, it's not like she can like fucking headline Coachella, but she can headline a festival that's like right below that. So yeah. What else can I say? I wonder if I can play the bass while holding this mic. I'm not sure. Let's see. I'm not sure if that even like caught onto the mic, and if you guys heard it, I think that's fucking Tank from Cowboy Bebop. Whatever, fuck it, this video's long enough. I gotta go eat potatoes, and maybe I'll watch a movie, and maybe I'll just mix some stuff. So yeah, maybe I don't fucking know, man. Bye.